So you may have gotten a new front bumper. This is the CBI Covert front bumper. You may have gotten one off of Black Friday or Christmas deal like I did, and you're probably really excited to get it installed. So I made this real complete step-by-step tutorial on how to install the bumper, at least how I did. And overall, it actually installed really pretty well. You definitely can do it. You just need some basic tools. You don't need any super special tools. It helps to have a couple people help you lift it onto the vehicle, but other than that, you can do it yourself. Some tips that I definitely recommend is to take your time with it, and I allotted a good 3 days in order to just really take my time with it and get it installed nice and slowly and correctly without making any big mistakes. So some time, take your time with it, don't be rushed. And what I think is very, very helpful is to install a light bar and a winch at the same time. This is not something that you want to take on and off and try to redo. So if you need to take your time to get a light bar and a winch, I know it can all be very expensive, but it is very worthwhile to try to get it all done at the same time. So follow along. I definitely encourage you to watch this video in its entirety first before you even start, because there are a few little items here and there that you will need. And I put links to all of those things in the description below to help you out. So I know there's different ways to install this. This is the way that I did, and it seemed to work out pretty well. So thanks again for watching. Again, if this helped you out, go ahead and subscribe and share with anyone else. Go ahead and like it. It really helps out the channel. So thank you again for watching. So just check out this packaging of this bumper. So it came all bound up with plastic covering, but everything is very well protected, and you can see that everything is labeled. We have parts, and then I saw this. We hope this letter finds you well. We've included one of our fare leads with your purchase for with the CBI front bumper. So check this out. So look at that. That is very, very cool. And they just included that free. So what I was planning on is putting this Badlands front winch, and it comes with this chrome fare lead, but I like this a lot better, so I'm going to do that. So that's very, very cool. They just included that for free. But check out this packaging. So take a look here. So it's bolted to these 2x4s, which is screwed onto or nailed onto this pallet. But even the washers on the bolts are padded so it doesn't scratch and wreck the powder coating. So very, very cool. Very nice job packaging. This whole thing, very well put together. So far, very pleased with the packaging, the appearance, and just how everything looks very good with this front bumper. So pretty excited to get this install started. So the first step is to prep the bumper and get the bumper all ready. So we're gonna get the winch ready and installed into the bumper. We're also gonna get the light bar and put that into the bumper and get everything all nice and ready before we touch the 4Runner at all. So first step is unwrapping, and we'll get started with that. So the first step is going to be to put the fare lead on, and we're going to do that because we have access to get at the bolts and all of that. So what I'm going to use is this anti-seize lubricant on the bolts that come with it. Thread the square nuts into each slot on the underside and secure them with blue tape. I found it really helpful to set the entire bumper up on some 5-gallon buckets, and that seemed to be a good work height for me. So I put some anti-seize compound on each bolt and went ahead and threaded each one in and tightened them all down. So I just kind of loosely fit this light bar in there, and you can see that the light bar is cut off on the bottom a little bit. What I really want is it up here. So I just kind of loosely fit some of these nuts and things here. So it looks like it will fit okay. I just need to have some sort of spacer underneath here to lift it up a little bit. And I think that bolt is long enough where it should be able to reach through the bottom. You can see that bolt. See that bolt coming through. So that is long enough there where I can put a spacer, and same on this side. Should be able to fit a spacer in there. So now I gotta just find a spacer of some sort to lift this up a little bit and get that nice and centered. Okay, so I think I got the light bar pretty well lined up now where I want it, and I'll show you what I did. I just added an extra nut right underneath that flange to raise it up a little bit, and that worked out just fine. I tightened both sides down. You know, I kind of took a gamble on this light bar. It was on clearance, it was on like super sale. It didn't come with any packaging or labeling, so I am pretty happy how it actually fit in there without any significant adaptations. So hopefully it'll work out just fine. So now we flipped the bumper around and we are putting this bottom plate on. So this plate fits not like that, but like this. There, that plate fits like this. So this is looking at the back of the bumper, and this plate goes up and inward like that. So you see this mesh and the logo. Then we have these clips that go on each one of these, pointing upwards. And then the bolt is going to come underneath, and go into this clip and thread in there. So we're going to take this back out and make sure that we have those clips positioned on there. So each clip is going to be facing upward, like that. There you can see they're lined up nicely the way they should. Now we fit it back in there and then bolt each one from the underside. And don't forget to use some anti-seize lubricant on each bolt. Okay, now you can see each bolt is in. That little knob on this little bracket is facing upward, and each bolt is in. Next, we're going to take a bolt with a washer on each one, and we're going to just put them in these side slots. We're going to do the same on the other side here. And in order to keep them in place, what we'll need to do is just put this blue tape and hold them in place. So now we want to thread nuts on there, then they will be not popping out the back. Now the next part is what to do with this ground cable. So I attached this long, thick ground cable. So underneath is this smaller ground cable, and that attaches behind. I put this little offset on here in order to have this stick out a little bit in order for this to lay flat. Now, this is the negative cable, and I just don't know if this is long enough to reach the battery. Okay, my open box deal on the Badlands Winch did not come with a negative grounding cable. So it came with these smaller negative grounding cables for if I needed to relocate this box, but I don't need to. This needs to just go up to the negative terminal on the battery, but it's not long enough. And so I had to order a new, longer cable, and I found actually a really good one. So this is from Spartan Power and made in the US, battery cable. So this is a 2-gauge wire, and this is 6 feet long. And I can put a link in the description below for this one if you need it, but it looks to be in very, very good quality. And yeah, lifetime crimp warranty. So that's good. That looks really good. So I will use this cable to go to here. And the reason you can't just add another cable onto here and splice them together is that you really want a good connection to your negative terminal, a good continuous connection. You don't want to just ground it somewhere else on the body of the vehicle. It really needs to go to the negative terminal. And the reason for that is that if it fails at all or seeks a different route of power instead of going straight to the negative terminal, it can actually overheat some of the other electrical components and cause a fire. So you definitely want to connect your positive to the positive and the negative directly to the negative terminal, and not on some of the other grounding bolts that are located around the vehicle. So today we are going to get started on the front bumper, and this is really a pretty intimidating thing for me to do. We're going to be replacing this silver plastic valance with this CBI front bumper, winch, light bar, and it requires some cutting, which I'm not super crazy about, but we're going to give it a try. We're going to do it, and I hope everything works out okay, and I hope the end result will be good. So it's about 15 degrees out, which is a lot colder than what I thought it would be. There's no heated garage, so we're going to probably have to do this in little increments. So I watched a bunch of videos on how to do this, and the video that I think I'm gonna follow most closely is the video by Baptism Overland. That's probably one of the best videos that I've seen on this sort of thing. And what I like about that is that you don't have to take this entire front end off. You basically do the sawing and all that with this mounted and in place, and you don't have to take that off. So that saves a ton of work and reduces the risk of breaking any other pieces. So I really like that about it. The other thing I like about it is that I have the same bumper, the CBI front bumper, the low profile Covert bumper, and I also have the same winch, the Badlands Apex Winch. So it should all follow that video fairly closely. So we're gonna see how it goes. The first step was to trace right along this line. And then right along there. And then we rip this off, and then we finish the tracing down there. So I'm gonna try to do this all very slowly over the next couple of days. I have a few days to work on this, and it got colder, so it's only about 15 degrees here. So we're gonna take it a lot slower, and we're gonna try to not make any sort of mistakes or break anything. So that's our goal, is to not break anything. I already forgot I have to loosen the 2 bolts underneath there. Okay. I don't really like the sound of that breaking, but I guess that's just these breaking off, so that's normal. Now we go ahead and finish the tracing of the line on the inner. See, we're doing that inner crease. That inner crease. Now on the underside, we take this bolt out and another one on the other side. That is helping hold this front valance in place. Then we go ahead and make a cut along that line. And I'm just going to double check, look underneath, and make sure that there's no electrical, there's no lines. In that other video, it said that there were some of the newer models had some fog lamp lines that run through here. Mine is a 2018, so mine should not have that. And but I will just look underneath and just double check. So this is the air tool that I have that I'm going to use to saw this. Now it's not a circular saw. A lot of people have that disc saw that will cut this. This is what I have. It's an air saw. So in order to even get it started, I do have to drill some holes in the corners. And so I'm going to use this drill bit, and I'm going to drill holes in the corners so I can get this saw started. I'm going to be sure to leave enough room. So I'm actually going to leave that line so you can see the line still. I'm just going to cut right below that line and just leave a little bit of extra just for some wiggle room. So now you can see I can get the saw started just by going into that hole, and then I will use this saw. I have this depth set at about this much or so, so that should work out okay. I can still kind of get at that angle and go down here, so hopefully that'll work out okay. Okay, so I have this pretty well sanded down, all the burrs taken off. Next, we want to saw these off, these little plastic tabs, just saw them right off on the underside right there. Okay, so now that we have those tabs cut off and that foam piece taken off, now we take off the bolts that hold some of the crash bars together. So first is this bolt, and there was another bolt, but I have this Viper cut here, and so that other bolt was cut off and off there. So there normally are 2 bolts. There's only 1 here. And same on this side. Just that 1 bolt there. You can see this is bent up and over where that other bolt would go. It would normally come out here. So just 1 of the 10mm bolts on each side. Now that we have those underside bolts removed, we're going to remove these 3 bolts. These are 14mm bolts. There's 3 on this side, and then there's 1 there and 2 in there. Okay, in order to get those bolts there, there's actually not enough room for a crescent or a socket wrench in there, so I'd need a crescent wrench. And I'm just gonna stop for a second and actually go to the back of the 4Runner here, and in here I keep this toolkit, and it's just really good to have a toolkit like this in your 4Runner to be able to use. So this little canvas kit, and I just got this off of Amazon, but it helps organize all sorts of tools. And I'll put a link to this canvas bag in the description below, but it's just good to have a canvas bag like this that you can roll up. It keeps everything organized, and it's good to have a set of tools in your 4Runner at all times because you just never know what you're going to end up needing. So now that we've got these top bolts taken off, now we have to get these bolts off. So there's 3 on each side, 14 millimeter, and 3 on this side. And it helps to have like an extension and then a deep socket, like this 14 millimeter socket that's deep, because you can see that those bolts, they do have quite a bit of thread sticking out of them. So you'll need kind of a deep socket and an extension to reach all the way in there and get those. Now with all these bolts taken out, this should be able to come right out, but it wasn't. So what I realized is that I still have a bolt right here that I need to take out. Then that'll loosen this underside, and this whole thing will come out. So same on that side. There's that bolt that I need to take out. Next, what we need to do is remove these brackets. So there's a 14 millimeter bolt there, and then there's 3 more there. And we're gonna save these bolts because those are what we are going to use to mount the bumper. And same on this side, 1 bolt there, 3 bolts there. I'm also going to remove this bottom plate, which just has a bolt here, looks like a clip there, and then another bolt there. So I'll take those off now. So for those of you who don't know, I use fluid film on a lot of different bolts and metal parts to prevent rusting and corrosion. So being in Minnesota, there's a terrible amount of salt, and corrosion is a huge problem. And so anytime that there's bolts or a metal surface like here, and this is where the bumper is going to attach to, I spray fluid film all in the threads, all around the bolts, all around where the 2 surfaces of metal are going to connect. And then even spray on the inside, all up and around there. That helps prevent a lot of corrosion and rust. So I'm a big fan of fluid film. Use it whenever you can, and it is great stuff. I just have these bolts threaded in all the way. They're not tight, they're just in all the way while we make the cuts here up in the plastic. That way any of these little plastic shards from cutting aren't going to get in the threads and jam it all up. And so I have all these threaded in there just kind of loosely. Eventually we'll take these bolts out and we'll use them to attach the bumper. One of these bolts are going to be threaded the opposite direction temporarily while we put the bumper on, and that allows kind of like this stud guide area where we have something to guide the bumper as it attaches. And then after it's attached, we'll thread it back out and put it back in the correct way. So now what we're gonna do is cut this plastic piece off, and I just put some blue tape on the plastic just to give you a guideline. And it's basically on the passenger side, it's straight all the way across. Now be careful you don't cut that tube. So you can see right where this curve starts right here. That's where I put that piece of tape straight across. So I've got the bottom there. Now on the driver's side, it also goes below that tube where that curvature is, right along the line here, and then at a little bit of an angle downward, and then straight across. There's this little divot right here in the plastic piece. So it's right at that divot line, and that extends in there. So kind of keep it as clean and as straight as you can. So here's a look at the finished product. This is the passenger side, that plastic piece that we just cut straight across. So that turned out real nice. I'm happy that I didn't cut through this hose. And then now to the driver's side, here's how that line turned out. So I'm also happy that I didn't cut through the hose there also. So yeah, you can see just basically going straight across and then angling down a little bit and then straight across again. This is the last thing we're going to do here tonight. So this is some edge trim. It's rubber, and here's the label. Let's see, fits 1/8 inch black. So on the inside is adhesive. They just peel off that and expose the adhesive. And then what this does is this will go right along this edge trim. So that'll fit right on there nicely like that. You can see it's fairly similar to this edge trim along that Viper cut. So I'm going to continue that up and along this whole side. I don't know if it's totally necessary, but I think it'll look nice and really finish off that rough cut. So we're going to put that on, and hopefully that will work. I'll also put the link of this in the description below. Oh my goodness, look at that. That just really finishes off that edge trim really, really nice. Look at that. Boy, that turned out good. I really like this material. It made a nice sharp turn here without any problem. It's got a good adhesive. It's sticking on there real nice. So yeah, look at that. That turned out really nice. I might have gotten a little carried away with this edge trim. So I put it all the way along here, but I had a bunch of extra, so I put some along here, that cut edge. But look how that turned out. That's real nice. So there's no sharp edges here at all. There's no burrs, there's nothing. So that turned out real nice. And I also put some on that cut edge. So I'm a big fan of this edge. So now we have that bumper all ready to receive the bumper. So that'll be our project for tomorrow. Remember, we did the prep for all of this beforehand. So I'm pretty happy with how this turned out so far. I didn't break anything. And now I'm going to clean all this mess up and kind of reset everything, charge some batteries, just reset everything for tomorrow, and come at this with a whole new fresh start, because tomorrow will be a big day to get that bumper in place. So we'll get all this mess cleaned up and organized. Here we are on day 2, and today is an exciting day because we are going to try to get this bumper installed on the 4Runner today. So hopefully everything will fit. Just gonna take it nice and slow, try not to make any mistakes, and try to get everything right the first time. So in order to clear the winch, this bar has to be pushed upwards a little bit. And so we have to loosen this bolt and loosen this bolt. You see how there is a rubber hose here, so it does have some wiggle room. So we should be able to move this up a little bit. This bar gets just pushed over just a little bit to the side. I ended up putting this protective sleeve on this just in case the control box of the winch is rubbing up against here to protect it just a little bit more. So next, under the hood, I'm going to take this plastic piece off just so I can have visual access and I can reach down and help kind of manipulate the bumper as we're trying to fit it in place. So these just have these push pins, and you just push them down and then pull them out. And they go all the way around there to remove that plastic valance. So one thing that I just realized is that in the package of the front bumper, there are these brackets. And I thought these brackets were for the bumper, but these are actually for the light bar. So they mount onto the bumper and mount the light bar. So the light bar came with kind of this universal bracket, but comparing it to the beefiness of this is way, way, way more solid and beefy. And so I'm going to switch out these little brackets right here. I'm going to switch those out with these. You can just see the difference. I'm glad I figured this out before installing the front bumper. It'll be a little bit extra work to replace the brackets now that the winch is in, so it's a little bit harder to access, but we're gonna go ahead and do it, and this will be a much, much better bracket. So I'm really glad that it came with these brackets, because these are very good. So I'm really happy how that turned out. That looks good. And on this side, that looks good too. So because the cord comes out on this side, this cord is too big to fit in the slot where this bolt goes. So I actually had to cut off a little bit of the metal to make room for that. I also adjusted the angle of the light bar, so I got that in the correct location where I want it. Everything is now tightened down, so we're good to go. We've got all the bolts backed out and removed, and we took one bolt and threaded it from the back side forward, so that'll give us a post to rest the bumper on, and we did the same thing on this side. So everything should be ready to try to get the bumper in there, hopefully, really hoping it fits. I just got the bumper on in place, and I needed 2 other people to help me out. And what actually worked out pretty decent is to have 2 5-gallon buckets, and then that allowed it just to kind of be lifted onto here, rested there. And then we could just, from there, kind of lift it, you know, one person on each side, and then one person in the middle. The person in the middle doing most of the heavy lifting, and the people on each side just guiding it into those studs where where that threaded bolt was in place. So that actually worked out pretty well. 2 5-gallon buckets and a piece of wood. But this is looking really, really good, and I am super happy with this so far. So now what we need to do is finish tightening all the bolts and take that other bolt that was threaded in the other direction and thread it back in the correct direction. So this is the driver's side. You can see we backed out this bolt, and we're going to flip it around and have it come in the other side and tighten all 3 of those bolts then. Then we have this bolt that we're going to thread in there tightly, and here is a powder-coated washer that goes on there. Let's take a look at the inside here and what things look like. So we have this bar here, and that's pretty tight, resting on the very top of the winch. You can see that there's just a little bit of wiggle room there, so it's not totally tight. I did loosen those bolts on each side to give a little bit more wiggle room here. So I did not need to relocate this solenoid, I think it is. So don't forget, there's a bolt down there that secures the bumper. That's the 4th bolt on each side. This one you can't see, but it's around the corner there. You can see that this just barely clears the winch also. I just kind of pushed it out a little bit, and then it cleared it just fine. I routed the power for the winch, the positive and the negative terminal, And I actually connected the handheld winch cable, and I'm just going to leave that connected and pass this wire up through. There's that extra hole right there. There's no sharp edges or anything, so it passed through there just fine. Coming out here, and I'll connect that to the battery. This will lead to the hand controller for the winch. I'll have this wound up and just kind of kept right here or something like that for easy access to use that handheld controller. You could potentially add, there is a wireless adapter here, and again, this should be wireless already, but the wireless does not work in this one, which is why I got such a good deal on that winch. Next step is to where that blue tape is, that's holding those bolts on either side, 2 bolts on both sides, and we will attach these brackets. So you can see those 2 bolts up there. This goes over those 2 bolts, and then this is going to attach here, and that is what is going to pull this together and help close that gap. But you can see already the gap is actually pretty decent. Pretty decent, not too bad there. We have those bolts threaded on up there, and then we have this bolt threaded on. You can see it's sandwiched by larger washers, and this washer, you want to make sure it just fits inside that little indent, so like that. So I think we might tighten this one down first, just for now, to help us get those other bolts tightened. I'll need someone on the inside to hold a wrench onto the head while I tighten that. So it's really a 2-person job on that one. Just to hold everything in place, I'm just going to tighten this for now. Now I can peel this tape off to expose the 2 bolts that we are going to thread in there. And same with this side, I'll peel that tape off. So now I got the wiring all cleaned up. So you can see right there, I have the light bar, which goes down there, attaches to the light bar. If you remember on our previous video, we pre-wired the light bar. So that was nice to just be able to plug that right in right there. The winch, the positive and the negative cables directly to the battery, and everything else is cleaned up. And the other thing I did is the hand controller for the winch. I actually passed it through the firewall and passed it to the inside, right here. So the reason I ran that handheld winch controller to the inside of the cabin is because in the middle of a blizzard, when it's sub-zero, I really don't want to be standing on the outside of the vehicle trying to fish for this wire and opening up the hood and standing outside. So this is a way where I can do it all inside the cabin yet. If I absolutely have to, I can also just pass this out the window and be able to control it from the outside also. But I like to be able to have this controller on the inside for an option. Here's what I ended up doing with the winch controller. I have the winch controller in here in just kind of the side pocket. That's a good spot to store it. I routed that winch controller wire underneath, out of the way, tucked up and zip tied out of the way underneath here, and you can see it coming along here. And I just have it wound around the 4-wheel drive shifter. So it's right here, it's easily accessible. I can just plug in this hand controller if I need to, and then I have control of the winch from the interior. There's no cables that are laying around, and it's nice and tucked away. So that's what I ended up doing with that controller. Someday I might install the wireless controller, but the wired is fine for now. Just a quick tip on this fairlead. This is how I install a cotter pin. Pushing it through and then twisting the metal around one on each side. And the reason for that is that the sharp edges are on the interior. It's not going to snag on anything. You're not going to injure yourself really with that. But then also it doesn't rattle around. You know, the more it rattles, the more noise it makes, and then also the more it rattles, it can potentially wear down with enough time and use. So this way it prevents movement and rattling and noise. So that's how I do it. This is the end of day 2. Looks like everything is put on there. Tomorrow we're going to make some final adjustments, finish some of those last bolts, try out the winch. We're going to spool that up nice and tightly and do some last minute corrections, then take that wrap off the bull bar and we should be done. I'm just going to answer a few questions about the front bumper that I had before getting the front bumper. That was just kind of a little bit of a gamble for me, but now I know that all my questions are answered about it now that I have it installed. And in case you have some of the same questions, we'll go through those. So the first question is, does the bumper meet with the front skid plate? So yes, here's the front skid plate. That's the factory. This is the 2018 off-road trim model. So here's the factory skid plate. Here's this metal bracket that goes underneath the radiator. So you can see there's no gap here. There's no gap. It's all nice and smooth. The next question is, how tight does this get? So you can see it just follows the curvature very, very well. And it matches. There's no gaps there at all. So, and on this side, that all looks really, really good. The next question is, does this bull bar block the front camera? And the answer is no. You can see the front camera actually sticks out underneath that bar really pretty well. So when you have this image on, since this is a wide angle lens, you can just barely see the top edge of the bar on the upper corners of the front camera, but it does not obstruct that. The next question is, does it obstruct the logo? No, it doesn't. It doesn't obstruct the logo at all. The other question that I previously talked about is, do you have to relocate this solenoid to the winch? And we answered that. The answer is no, you don't. The other question I had is, can you install pod lights later on? So yes, you have these slots. These are for pod lights that can go here. And the question is, can you reach these to be able to get bolts through those after you install, or do you have to install it all at once? So the answer is yes, you can reach these. So this little access, there you can see my finger popping out right there. So yes, you have access. You can install pod lights after you install the bumper. The other question I had is, how much weight is this, and does it sink the suspension? That answer is no. I don't notice any change in the ride quality. There's no front nosedive when I brake, and I don't notice any sort of change in the suspension at all. These are Bilstein's 5100s, and that's Old Man Emu springs. So there's no sinking at all. So that is good. Those are all my main questions that I had for this front bumper. So hopefully that answers some of your questions. Anyway, it turned out very nice. Awesome. I really love it. So if you're considering it, I would definitely consider the CBI front bumper as one of your top choices.